And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast brought to you by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com. As always, if you're down at the Banks, make sure going to a Reds game, have mercy on your soul with the way that whole mess of a project is going right now. But you might as well stop by and see our friends at the Holy Grail. While you're there, get you a Cincy Light. That Cincy Light, an additional 50 cents from every Cincy Light purchased at the Holy Grail, will be donated back into the Cincy Reigns Fund that goes directly to the student athletes at the University of Cincinnati. So support those that support us. It's the best bar in the city for a reason. Make sure you stop by and see our friends at the Holy Grail. They will get you taken care of. All right, let's get this show started. So we are growing shockingly close to the start of camp, to the start of football season. We are not far away from this thing really getting rolling. As soon as 4th of July is over, it feels like, all right, hyperdrive to camp, and then it's football season. So it is time for us to start talking to folks around the Big 12, future opponents of the Cincinnati Bearcats this season. And I have developed a great working relationship with my good friend Tim Fitzgerald here on the Big 12 Insiders Show. If you have not checked that out, go to Big 12 Insiders on YouTube, subscribe, get them. Are you guys at 1,000 yet? Are we there?
We're at 1,000, but the surprises didn't end there from YouTube. So we kind of had to start over in some ways because they claimed we were stealing our content from the Go Powercat site. From myself. I was stealing from myself.
Oh.
So we had to delete all those old videos. They're on Go Powercat and start over.
Is that punishable by public hanging?
I don't. You know what? Well, if Google employees come to hang you can probably beat them all up. But yeah, I don't know. It was just like you could have told us. So it's crazy. They wouldn't actually. They never tell us what was wrong. We had to figure it out.
Sure. Yeah, we've had to do that a couple times where they kept demonetizing videos, and I called them out on it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's no reason that was demonetized. We'll monetize it now." And I'm like, "Well, the video already hit. That video's 2 weeks old. Nobody's watching that thing again.
Going back to watch it.
It's amazing how they don't get their own product.
Oh, it's unbelievable." But anyway, Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, the K-State site in the 24/7 Sports Network. It has always been a big one. I've always admired Tim's work, so it's been a joy to start working in collaboration with him more over the years. I gave him a chance to pass this off to somebody, and he said, I got it.
I got it, man.
It's what we like to hear.
Dave is our football expert, so Dave will have most questions.
That puts a lot of pressure on you, Dave.
It's very kind of you. But yeah, appreciate
Let's get started.
Let's started.
Talk Kansas State. We didn't play Kansas State last year. We do get Kansas State this year in Manhattan, in the Little Apple in November.
Yeah.
That should be delightful.
Well, did you see last year's Kansas State Iowa State game?
Did?
Yeah, I did.
It won't be that bad. I've never seen a game that bad, so can't do it again. So
you can't promise that, sir.
I can't. Not with Kansas. Not with Kansas. We could have a tornado in November. Who knows?
I want to start where we kind of do with all these quarterback.
Yeah.
You guys have a very interesting, from an outsider's perspective, and you can probably shed some light on this. Very interesting dynamic that seemed to play out at the end of the year with Avery Johnson coming in, having 5 rushing touchdowns against Texas Tech, having a big game against NC State in the bowl game, and then Will Howard transferring to Ohio State. You don't see that often where a quarterback that has been established and led a team to several successful seasons ends up being the one kind of moving out. Before we get into this year, just kind of like go back to that period for you guys. Like, what was that like? It's not something you typically see where a true young guy has that much juice that he can essentially, it seems like, kind of force out the older guy.
Yeah, I think it was self-forcing out. I think it was apparent. It's apparent to everyone in the program who would be the starter this year. And I think Will's no dummy, and he knew that, and it worked out fine. He found a pretty decent school to play at. But I think he'll do pretty well. His game might actually fit what the Big Ten does. He's a good quarterback. He really is, but he made an enormous breakthrough in 2022 when Adrian Martinez was hurt at TCU, and he came in and almost led the Wildcats back. They ended up losing that game, but he ended up leading them to the Big 12 championship that year. And so everyone was confident coming into 23. He had some issues. He wasn't quite as good in 23. And meanwhile, finally, after a bad game at Oklahoma State, in which he was pretty dreadful, they give Avery Johnson an opportunity to play at Tech, and he just ran for 5 touchdowns and set a school record. And he's the fastest guy on the team. He's incredibly athletic. He's also a great thrower. He just hasn't had to show it much. So Will hit the portal not long after the regular season was over. Avery became the starter for the bowl game. They're really cautious because he was their only quarterback of note on them. I mean, everyone else was walk-ons. Every other quarterback in that room on scholarship left because they knew where the minutes were going to go with Avery. And he played pretty well. I mean, they bottled him up. They told him to throw it away if there wasn't anything. They didn't run him much because they didn't want to expose him. But it's going to be fun to see how they use him because this kid can throw ropes around the field. And like I said, he is not just fast. He's a very nifty runner. He's kind of got the whole package. And on top of that, he's one of the best young leaders I've ever come across. And, his dad told my recruiting guy that when Avery's in the room, he's always the adult in the room, even including at family dinner. So he's just a real level-headed kid, and he's got that blonde hair, and he's kind of the whole package. And our podcast, I just wrapped up our podcast before this, and the headline of that is the hype overdone? And the simple answer is no. Everyone in the program knows what they got, and it's special. From our perspective, not being as locked in as you guys are. I know him as the athletic running type, but you say that the passing game is there as well. It's there, yeah.
Where is he, I guess, as he goes into being the full-time starter, what are the elements of the passing game that you think they're working, trying to improve the most and just his overall game? Because he is as dynamic as a runner as you're probably going to see throughout the country, right. But he's obviously going to need to keep developing the other parts of his game as well.
Absolutely. They really wanted him to see more and more pictures, see more and more defenses. People are going to try to confuse him. He is young. He's a student of the game. And that's really the question, is how quick can he get up to speed? I just had the defensive coordinator on one of my podcasts, my personal podcast, Life of Fitz, and we got into Avery, and he makes our defense better. And he said the one thing he's sure of is whether he just absolutely takes off like a rocket or struggles, he's going to handle it. He's going to handle it either way, and that's the kind of confidence they have in him. But developing that passing game, making sure defenses can't get down in the box and make it difficult on him is going to be really key. But he's also a very mindful quarterback and will get you into the right play if needed.
Wait a minute. You have a personal podcast?
Yeah, I have a podcast called Life of Fitz. It's started in the pandemic about my cancer journey. It started in 2018, and the pandemic I was locked down. So we all went through this. What the hell do we put on our websites? And so out of that came that podcast, which filled, a podcast a week, and just me having conversations. Like that first season, I called Frank Martin and Brad Underwood, and people I've known throughout the years. And I've had some really fun guests and some guests nobody's ever heard of, but we just shoot the shit for 45 minutes or so, and it's fun. It's just a conversation between friends, and it was originally a phone call. This year we've added it to video, but it's been a little more cancer intensive this season so far than I intended it to be, but we kind of visit all topics.
I'm sorry to hear the cancer part. As you know, I've not personally directly dealt with it, but lost my wife to cancer last year. So I feel that. I was intrigued by maybe I want my own podcast, Dave.
No one would. Enough people around here have to listen to you enough. Like, we already have people that don't listen to this show because you're on it.
I got a good name for you. Bad Chad, bad. Behave.
I like it. I'm not good at behaving. So it's apropos.
That's right.
Carry on, Dave. I'm sorry. I heard something that piqued my interest.
That's why we have guests on. You never know what you're going to come across. So my next question kind of rolls right into having this new quarterback that is very talented but is still learning. The offensive line is replacing 4 multi-year starters, one that was drafted in the 3rd round by the Cowboys. What is that group looking like going into the season, and how much of that, figuring all that out, is then a big deal for Avery, being that, first go around, probably not going to be up on calling out all the protections and everything that a junior or senior would be doing.
Right. You're exactly right. Losing Cooper Beebe, who was just an absolute boss. I mean, he was an incredible college offensive lineman. I'm sure he'll hit the ground running starting for the Cowboys. And that hurts. But because of injuries and rotations, that they really do still return 3 starters because they've had some injuries. They get back Taylor Portier, who's had back-to-back knee injuries, both knees. And this year was kind of getting back on his feet, getting under him. So he's been a starter in the past, and he's expected to be full strength at one of the guard positions. Hadley Panzer is another Kansas kid that had broken into the lineup. Well, when he got hurt a couple years ago is when he broke in, and he's been reliable. He might play some center. We don't know. The center job is, as you mentioned, that's a big part of calling out protections in this scheme. So they'll figure that out. And Carver Willis is a guy that stepped in when they had an injury at tackle, and he established himself as pretty reliable after a dreadful start, in which he admits was awful. They went out and picked up a really skilled left tackle from North Dakota. Kilty's his last name, and they expect him to be pretty good, and they'll sort out who's the other one. But you are right. Putting that group together and getting a rotation of 7 guys is critical, and that'll be the big project for the offensive line coach, Connor Riley, who, became offensive coordinator because of the departure of Colin Klein to Texas A&M.
Do you? That's kind of where I was going to go. Do you think the scheme and everything pretty much the same? I'm sure he has some variations, but I'm sure that helps Avery, even though he's got a new OC, that it's internal and they're not really going to change a whole lot.
Yeah, they'll change some because the position coach, he was a quarterback coach, Colin was, and so they brought in Matt Wells, a former head coach at Texas Tech and Utah State, a friend of Chris Kleiman, and he's the associate head coach and assistant OC. And a lot of his schemes are being worked in because he does a lot of stuff with option, whether it's the running game or an option run pass play that they feel like Avery's going to be really effective at. And I'm really interested to see how that's all incorporated because while they're talking about all these things they want to do with Avery, they also need to protect him because he's a 205-pound quarterback that could probably get knocked around pretty good in this conference. Quarterbacks regularly don't survive the season in the Big 12. So keeping him upright is a big part of this.
Transfer portal has become, such a huge deal for everybody. Give me a guy on each side of the ball that you guys are excited about that should be an instant contributor.
They haven't been into the portal as much as you might think. K-State has done something really interesting. They're using their NIL money internally to protect players that have kind of earned it. They're not really, out there shopping for players as much, but they've got some guys on both sides that are in the mix. But I don't think there's going to be one guy you can say that is going to be a star that's coming out of the portal. They've just done a really good job of making sure they don't get bled off their roster and have to go replace a bunch of people. Yeah, they lost a couple guys, but only one of them was of real significance, and they had some in-house guys to replace him. So yeah, they've been pretty good about the portal. They've touched on receiver. They got Keegan Johnson a year ago. We expect him to finally assert himself at receiver. And Dante Cephas comes in from Penn State at receiver. So those 2 guys, even though Keegan was a year ago, those are the really big portal additions. They kind of add a player here and there, and but they use the portal a lot for depth, not frontline guys.
What are you guys expecting to get out of Dylan Edwards and pairing him with Giddens and Avery's running ability? That's three pretty exceptional ball carriers, and
all a little bit different. I mean, DJ Giddens is a more, he's not going to wow you with his highlight reel. He's just going to, run through some tackles and get along the sideline for 15 yards and do that a lot. He's really interesting. He's a 2-star kid out of Junction City, Kansas, which is 20 minutes down the road. Had some academic issues, got them addressed, got into school, and it's just really developed. There's a lot of Kansas kids do because it's limited contact, limited coaching in the state. All three of those are Kansas kids, and Dylan Edwards had committed to K-State, then switched to Notre Dame, and then switched to Colorado because Deion Sanders was his youth coach in Dallas. So that's kind of a lifetime friendship there, and just didn't turn out to be what he wanted. So he came home, and it's really intriguing to think what they can do with him because, K-State, they've done pretty good with those little guys between Darren Sproles and Deuce Vaughn. And there's other ones that really don't get the notice, but a guy named John Hubert wasn't very big, and he was basically a 3-year starter. Dylan Edwards will walk into a system where they know how to use the little guy. But what's different about him is he can line up in the slot as a receiver or, switch back to the backfield. They can do a lot of, positions with him, moving personnel around, and it becomes very intriguing. I do want to see those two guys, Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, just run the old school option and make a defense decide what the hell to do with those two guys, because that could be very entertaining.
Bring back the triple.
No doubt. They could with this group. They really could.
Especially if you've got an offensive line that maybe there's some questions, just get them out in space, cut blocking, and let those guys run wild.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. And, one of the things, K-State pulls its line a lot, particularly center. And for them to be efficient, they've got to have a center that can get out to the edge very quickly to get things done. And that's kind of a unique aspect of this offense is how much they have those guards and center moving around.
Flip it over to the defense. K-State's always had a pretty solid defense, especially when it comes to points allowed. What position groups, as we get into the season, or what position group are you most confident in? And then maybe which one do you think still has some questions to be answered in camp as we get close to the first game?
Yeah, I think the back end, maybe safety. We need to see some guys step up. As I mentioned, they lost a player in Kobe Savage who, was a really good safety for K-State that they brought in out of junior college, and he got wooed away by, portal bucks at Oregon. They've got some guys that they feel like will take over there, and they're pretty good. But anytime you're plugging in, a 5-end back in backfield on the defensive side, and you're plugging in a couple new pieces, are they going to dance together the right way? And they rotate together, the proper ways. Linebacker, they should be pretty good. They bring back Austin Moore, nicknamed the Machine, because he's one of those Kansas walk-ons that just developed into a really good football player, and he just kind of does everything right, but he won't intimidate you by his size. And Desmond Purnell was forced into action a couple years ago by an injury, and he has turned into one heck of a linebacker. Those are two more Kansas kids. It's amazing to me how many really good players on this team are out of the state of Kansas and what has provided Kansas State. But the position group on the defensive side to keep an eye on is D-end. They lost a player to the portal, lost a player to graduation, and fellas, they might be better than they ever have been. And they had Felix Anudike-Uzama, a first-round pick a couple years ago. They went out in their previous recruiting class and signed 3 defensive ends that were ready to play right out of high school. And those guys are rare for Kansas State. This is a developmental program. And now that they've had a year to develop, and they feel like all 3 of those guys are going to be effective in the Big 12 at defensive end, whether it's, the strong side or the weak side, these dudes can play.
So they've got a guy named the Machine, but he did not join the Russian Mafia.
No.
Okay.
No, he'd probably join like the wheat mafia, if there is one.
The 4-H
good Kansas kid. Yeah, 4-H mafia. Yeah. Exactly. They will brand you.
K-State is very likely going to find themselves in the top 25 going into the season.
Yep.
Definitely, going to be in the mix to be in the Big 12 championship, and if they were to win that, they would put them in the more than likely in this new expanded playoff, or absolutely in this new expanded playoff. What what needs to go well, or as good as possible given everything that goes on in a year for that to come true for them? Because I'm sure that is the expectation that you guys have and the team has.
Yeah, it is. This should be a pretty good team. You guys have gone through a tour of the Big 12. It's chaos. I mean, you think you know how a game is going to come out, and you probably got it wrong. 2 years ago, the Big 12 broke me of betting on college football because every lock I picked, I got wrong. I mean, it's just utter nonsense what happens in this conference, and I think it's going to get worse now because really nobody knows who's going to be good and bad as we grind through the season. Kansas State's schedule is very strange. They have a non-conference game against Arizona that was on the books already, so they're going to play that out for a couple seasons. So that game is still there in September. They also go to Tulane in the non-conference, so they've got a road game to New Orleans. This is another year where you've only got 4 conference home games. The 4 or 5 is against you, and they have one of those games early against Oklahoma State. They have one conference home game basically from mid-October to mid-November. You guys in Arizona State come in games 10 and 11, and there's 2 of the 4 Big 12 home games, and they're both in November late and before you go to Iowa State. I just want to tell you, Iowa State in November, it might as well be Manitoba. It's just not a fun place to be. I've driven through a lot of snow and ice getting there. So it's a weird schedule, but I think this team's going to be pretty good. Again, you got to keep that quarterback upright. They went out and found a veteran backup, Roberson from UConn, and he's around just in case. But boy, you don't want, when you got a quarterback as special as Avery, you want to make sure he gets through the season.
Make sure you make that Tulane trip. That stadium is unlike anything you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I thought a lot of K-Staters would go on this trip, but they just,
it's
the fan base just went to Alabama. Is he being a smart ass? What?
He is, because it's like any other high school stadium you've ever been to.
Yeah,
it's like, it is a high school stadium,
but like 24,000 or whatever. And
that's, they had 3 games together.
Look, guys, I'm in the media. If they've got a free meal and a covered seat for me in climate control, I'm good. I'm good.
That's right.
But any of those things go wrong, and I'll bitch. I'm
the opposite. I'm our resident fan. I tailgate and go to the games and don't actually do any work on game days.
That's a blessing. That's the thing I tell young journalists. Are you willing to give up game days? What? Yeah, it's a work day.
Dave said no. And I was like, I guess I'll let him still host the podcast. But yeah,
it works out great.
Yeah, there was a big controversy. He got caught smuggling in confetti cannons. And then they took away his confetti cannons. And ever since they took away the confetti cannons,
they heightened
everything went to shit.
It kind of sucked.
Well, I think a confetti cannon is a little harder to hide than the tortillas at Texas Tech. They get hidden in places.
I would get 5. I'd get 5 of them in a game.
Oh my
21
gosh.
when they went to the playoff and were scoring a boatload of points, and it was the funnest. Went to Notre Dame, had just an insane season, and I would get like 5. I'd put them down my pants in my sleeves, and then the next year they turned up the sensors on the security, and it was the foil tops that keep the confetti in the cannons would set off the security system. So, I mean, they've basically done this to themselves, though. That happened Fickles last year. They weren't as good. He left, and then we weren't good last year. So if you want to get good again, let me bring the damn confetti cannons back in.
Yeah, don't foil them. Let them bring it in.
I would love video of that first time that you were pulling 5 confetti cannons.
They were like, "What's
Out
this?"
of
I was
your
like,
body.
"Oh, it's my keys. It's my keys." They're like, "No, wait a second. What's this one? What's this over here?" Like, oh, come on.
Man.
How is
I have employed the land of misfit toys.
That's the best group of employees you can have.
we have fun, man. Like
Yep.
it's college sports. There's way
Yep.
too much serious nonsense going on for us
Correct.
not to have a good time with it. How is the Kansas State rivalry now that Kansas is actually good?
It's interesting. Historically the two programs have been awful, and to find maybe this past year was only the second time that they've had good teams in the same year. That in 1995 they were both in the top 20, and they came into Manhattan and K-State blew its doors off. K-State has completely dominated this series for many years. 3 of KU's wins in the last 20, 25 years were the 3 years Ron Prince was coach and Mark Mangino was coach at KU. But Lance Leipold is evening it up. Last year, K-State won in Lawrence, but it wasn't easy. They've had a lot of blowouts there. And those days, I think, are done. When they come to Manhattan in midseason, that game's just going to be enormous. It could decide who makes it to Arlington, or the Iowa State game could. It's going to absolutely be a bloodbath because KU's lost 15 in a row in this series. And, that mounts up, and, the kids aren't responsible that are playing, but they got to carry that weight for all 15 years. And I think they're pretty sick of it.
Yeah, don't lose because, boy, everybody turns fast.
We know that one. Last happened to us last year in UC's big rivalry game. They had won 15 or 16 in a row and lost last year. So, yeah, it wasn't pretty. But that's
not the rivalry I'm interested in, Dave. That's
No.
not the Kansas State rivalry that interests me the most.
Well, you go ahead.
Fascinated with Farmageddon. I know nothing about Farmageddon coming into the Big 12. It is by far my favorite rivalry in the Big 12 because I think those two places generally hate each other. That's the sense I get.
It's gotten there real quick. And what the funny thing is the fan bases are almost identical. I mean, they're both land grant or ag schools. They both have Big Brother that thinks they're better than them in the state of Iowa and Kansas. There's so many similarities between those two programs. They're like twin brothers. Yeah, exactly. Farmageddon is amped up to an incredible degree, and there's a lot of heat. Last year when Iowa State won in the blizzard in Manhattan, their offensive coordinator, who will go unnamed, he left there. He went somewhere else, I think the Rams, was standing on the table in the coach's booth, pounding on the glass. I've never seen quite an exhibition like that, but that kind of shows, what kind of heat and pressure are on the coaches for that game. Yeah, Farmageddon's turned into a thing. So, of course, the Big 12 didn't protect it.
Right. Of course. Yeah, of course.
What's funny about it is 3 of the 4 years, Kansas State plays Cincinnati, which I don't mind. But why is Kansas State playing Cincinnati 3 times and Iowa State 3 times instead of 4 and 2? It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
But yeah, they decided Farmageddon could be skipped here in a few years, and in 25 they're moving it to Dublin, so that'll be Farmageddon. I'm
not a fan of that stuff.
I've already told him that you've got to import a bunch of Busch Light, or the Iowa State fans will probably try to overthrow the government.
That's right. For our fans that come out for the game, what are the important places that they need to hit? How's the tailgate scene? All that good stuff.
Yeah, tailgate scene's amazing. Kansas State has, their donor lots. So the east lot is fairly big. They put the practice facility in the middle of it, so that ate up some space. The west lot is kind of the money lot. The east lot's more the party lot. But a lot of tailgating. It's a great tailgating culture. I think that's adopted, from the Chiefs in some ways, because that's another tailgating place. But if, you need to come in the Friday before, if you can get a room. Aggieville is a student downtown. It's a bar district, restaurant district. just right off the southeast corner of campus. It's an amazing place. There's a lot of student destinations down there, but there's some pretty good restaurants. A place called Taco Lucha, another called So Long Saloon. They're connected, owned by the same people that I just absolutely love. And they've always got lines because they're worth the wait. So yeah, you need to come. It's a great college town, man. I hear people slight Manhattan for being small, and
no way.
It's a beautiful setting. It's a college town, and the kids have fun. They get after it a little bit.
Enlighten me on this. It's not going to be a thing in November, but enlighten me on this waterfall. Like, what is this place that I keep seeing pictures of?
Waterfall?
Like, isn't there like a secluded area that's like a waterfall or something? Or is that something Kansas State fans make fun of to act like it's a tropical location?
Yes, we have a lot of that. Yes, where they take basically the Swiss Alps and put it to the north of the stadium, which, by the way, have historically been sheep fields for the ag school. So once in a while, the what we call it, the Kansas gold flavor comes in, the aroma of poop. Once in a while, you get the north wind, and you get that wonderful thing. But no, there's some cool spots. When you come into Manhattan, you're going to discover it's a lot more scenic than you think. It's nestled in the Flun Hills, which kind of looks like Ireland, and it's a beautiful setting.
I've been there once. A friend of mine was getting married. He's in the military. He's getting married in Vegas. His only request was that we drive his car to him that he had not had for 4 years to his wedding in Vegas, so he would again have a car. And we were driving down the highway many, many hours into the trip, and I saw Manhattan, and I was like, let's go check out K-State. So we went and we spent the night in Kansas State. We went to Aggieville, and I don't remember where we ate. We had a very fun night. And then we struggled to wake up in the morning and get back on the road to Vegas, but we did. And then we ran into a snowstorm in the middle of nowhere in April that we had to pull off. And they told us basically, if you don't have tires on your chains, you're not making this trip. See it. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah. We get weird weather. It'll be a blizzard in April, and August. Typically, the August games will be 102 with 70% humidity, and it feels like you're in Mississippi.
I did want to ask about to go back to Iowa State real quick.
Yeah.
From the outside, what is your opinion of their defense? Because Cincinnati hired Tyson Veit, who was a critical piece of that Iowa State staff. Cincinnati is implementing that 3 high safety defense that Iowa State has used to great success.
Yep.
In the Big 12. What has been your take on that Iowa State defense? Because really, in a lot of ways, Iowa State and Kansas State have been the teams that have leaned on defense a little bit in this league that's known for offense.
And K-State had to do the same. In 2001, they decided they needed to go to that defense. And the defense have evolved to be a little bit different, but I tell you what, Iowa State plays some defense. They have a Big Ten quality about them with that defense. In the past, I mean, you had Brock Purdy, who's in the NFL, and running back and receiver who's in the NFL. I mean, you had some really good offensive talent, and yet it was the defense that always led the way for them. And it's a good way to play good football, I'll tell you that. They're in almost every game, and they will knock your teeth in. And it's a type of football I respect greatly. And for whatever reason, that defense seems to be something you almost have to play in this conference, or you're not going to be able to keep up with. This offense is so predicated. This conference's offenses are so predicated on creating one-on-one opportunities and getting you into space and winning those battles. This defense allows you to go a little bit smaller and be more athletic, and I think that's essential. But it also, it comes back around. People start running the ball, and you can sustain some losses there. Ollie Gordon's not exactly easy to stop with smaller linebackers and safeties.
Fact.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah, the running backs in this conference, especially for this year, are, I mean,
it's crazy.
7, 8, 9.
Cincinnati returns a 1,000-yard rusher that nobody is talking about.
Yeah.
Because the other backs in this league it's not because Cincinnati's being slighted. It's that he's still 5th, 6th, 7th, like whatever you want to, wherever level you want to go on where he ranks in terms of backs in the league. it's going to be an outstanding league running the football this year.
Yeah, it will be.
I'm all set, man. I'm good.
I want to get a little hoops here real quick.
Oh, okay.
Look.
Did you have to donate to the Coleman Hawkins Foundation to make that happen?
That is a great story, by the way. K-State has a really good NIL, and it's the official NIL at Kansas State University. I don't understand how that works, but and it's been really
effective. One too.
Yeah, it's been really effective. And so I hit up the head of the NIL as a former football player, and I said, "Dude, is this $2 million number accurate on Coleman Hawkins?" And he said, "I have no idea. That's through basketball's private NIL." What? Didn't know there was one. I knew he'd been talking to a group of donors about stuff and they were working on it. I didn't realize it wasn't through Wildcat NIL. So we really don't know any of the truth, if that number's real or if it's value or cash. You know, you can lump a lot of value into a, you know, between a place to stay and a car to drive and restaurants, and you can get a lot of value that isn't real cash. But the fact that they had that kind of money, I think, is just an indication that K-State is tired of being number 2 to Kansas, and they want the alumni who remember K-State's great basketball tradition want to get back in the game and play at a high level.
He's got all the tacos you can eat at that taco place you talked about.
Oh, it'd be great. It would be fantastic. He's going to be fat.
Yeah, you know what? He won't be able to get up and down the floor.
Yeah, this K-State team will get up and down the floor now. They went into the portal and got some guys that can flat out get up and down. They're going to be fun to watch. But you know, you don't know what you're going to get when you add 10 pieces, and they've done that almost every season now. This is his 3rd year, and he returned 2 players from the previous coaching staff and had 11. I think last year was 9, and this year it's 10. It's crazy the what you can do now with the transfer portal in basketball, but that's not sustainable. They're going to have to settle into kind of recruiting guys that want to be here, you know. But when you have 2 of your 3 freshmen transfer out because they didn't get enough playing time, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, freshman retention. I'm having a hard time caring about high school recruiting. Like, I know it's vital and I know it's critical, but in this day and age, man, it's hard. If it's not a top 10 guy, they're going to need some development. And you hope that they have the patience to wait out that freshman year and get to the sophomore year, because if they don't, you're going to have 8, 9, 10 new guys every year. Tim, you've been around this conference for a long time. When you watch what happens every offseason now, like especially the past 2 years, and the way everybody just completely reloads and gets most of the top of their board, unless they're going against each other, like it has been,
it's crazy.
It's shocking to watch every week. You're like, okay, well, we think we've got an idea, and then all of a sudden this team lands 2 guys, and now they're up in the middle of the pack. And if you're not great every offseason, you're going to get killed in this league.
Yep, absolutely. I'm a big believer in Brett Yormark's basketball play, this effort to get a separate contract for basketball, because I think the networks have been cheating conferences on basketball value. And, you know, everyone he's talked to has indicated that. And it brings us to an interesting question. What will he do if the ACC does crack open? Will that affect, is he going to lean into basketball? Or, you know, certainly if some of those football brands are available, there's not many, you got to get them if you can. But other than that, then will you be looking at bolstering your basketball product? It's very interesting to me, because he sees a place. Let's be honest, this conference, there's no one on the table that will help this conference significantly close the gap with the Big Ten and SEC in terms of blue bloods or national brands. They're just not out there. Even if you had Florida State and Clemson, it helps you, but it doesn't close that gap. But he wants to create a gap in basketball so substantial they won't be able to close it, and the money could actually balance out to be pretty close to what you want. He believes basketball contracts are going to skyrocket here in the near future. I tend to agree with him, and I think Turner Broadcasting is going to come in and turn that into something big for them and really amp up the value of college basketball and media rights.
It's so crazy to watch this league.
It's insane.
Schedules come out tomorrow.
Do they really?
Or at least I don't know dates come out, but the 5 home, 5 away, 5 both. That matrix is going to be released by the Big 12 tomorrow. So I'm excited to see that. And
I'm too.
Hopefully we get a little home and home action with Kansas State this year. I think those are going to be 2 really good teams battling in that middle class. I mean,
yeah,
there's 5 top 10 teams or whatever. I think there's going to end up being 5 top 25 quality teams behind them.
Yep.
Kansas State's going to be one. Cincinnati, Texas Tech, BYU has had a shocking offseason, kind of, when you consider their coach left. And then they go out and get a bunch of, top of the board type guys. That middle class in the league. Ooh.
Yeah, I agree.
It's gonna be a lot.
It's something, man. It just really is. I feel bad. Mike Boynton, did it the old way. Recruited a bunch of really good freshmen, had him come in and got his ass kicked, and he got fired. You just can't do it anymore. You got to be old, or you're going to be out of a job.
Yeah. Kai says, if I've learned anything from this conversation, it's that Chad needs a stuffed Bearcat hanging on his wall.
I wish my camera, this angle just cuts its head off. That's Rocky the Wildcat. That's Rocky.
You guys go this. You guys go this angle.
Yeah.
On the Insider show.
Yep.
We like this one.
You know what? I think we're going to have to switch. I think Rivals, Jesus, 24/7 wants us all to be in those windows so if they want to lift our stuff, it's in the right format. I'm against it, but I'm a team player.
Exactly. All right. You good, Dave?
I am. That was awesome.
All right, Tim, much appreciated, my friend. And I am back from Nationals. So if you guys need me, as long as I'm not doing radio, I am always open to talk to you and be on the Insider show. And I don't tell UC fans his past history, his connection to town, just so they don't get mad at him.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Here's a guy that played offensive guard in the Big 12, was Michael Bishop's left guard, and started off playing college basketball in another school in Cincinnati. It's really interesting. And then his body said, "You know what? We're going to be fat. And I better go play college football." He is just the best dude. He is. And it does a great job hosting that show.
Yep, and that's Big 12 Insiders. Go check it out on YouTube. Subscribe, because YouTube is YouTube sometimes. I hope they're not watching, but they'll catch it, and I'll start getting demonetized again every once in a while for no reason.
I don't want to make them mad. I just want to be monetized on that channel.
Exactly. All right, thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Appreciate you, Tim.
Thank you, boys. It was great.
Thank you, Tim.
There you go. Go powercat.com. If you're looking for anything happening in Kansas State, make sure you check them out and give Tim a follow on social, because there's a lot of good info there. Appreciate you, brother.
You bet. Anytime.
All right, Dave. That was a full. They're going to be good in both sports.
I don't like Avery Johnson is a dude. Like, I'm fired up to see what he does. Like, he is an electric quarterback that should hopefully, like Tim said, he's not, I wouldn't say he's small, he's slight.
Yeah, so he's not big and muscular.
It will be interesting to see how much, as the full-time starter, they design run. I don't think they're going to take away his, true athletic ability and his instincts, but how much are they really going to put him out there and risk what could be a playoff type season? Yeah. So very, very good player. Very interesting to see how their skill guys work with him, how the offensive line comes together. Just
they've got a couple guys that should be great backs. So
Giddens Giddens and Edwards together is pretty damn good.
But what I'm saying is, you should be able to I don't want to say keep, like, you're not going to have to run him a lot.
No, but he's that good. Like,
yeah, of course.
Instinctively, you're going to be like, yeah, I want him running because he's the best player on our team.
Yeah, I'm just saying you're not going to have to force.
No, definitely not
20 carries a game.
Oh no,
because he's got dudes that he can just hand it off to that are going to be more than effective.
Yeah,
getting a bunch of yards. If their defense is as good as Tim thinks they're going to be, they very well could be, playing in the Big 12 championship and looking at a spot in the playoff.
I think they're
offensively they should be really good.
I would have them in that top tier of projected teams that as we go into November are jockeying for one of those two spots.
I mean, if you're looking at 20 teams to whittle down to 12, they would be in the 20.
Oh yeah. But
this league is bananas. So
yep, and you're bringing in Utah, and Arizona is going to be good. Utah should be good if especially if Cam Rising can stay healthy. So yeah, there's Oklahoma State brings back a ton. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So we should. This was our first. I've made contact already with West Virginia and Colorado. So those are very likely our next two. We're trying to figure out some timing on those. But yeah, we are getting into the Big 12 opponent previews. That's for sure. Minus one team that we never do because
we don't want to talk to them.
I don't want to talk
to
them.
Don't care.
Not interested.
Not even a little bit.
It's our network. We can do what we want.
We stayed at one of the Universal resorts last week when we were in Orlando, and across the street was a Howard Johnson. And I really wanted to go take a picture because Aaron kept playing up that I was on an unofficial
How did
visit.
you not, why did you not do it?
Because it was all the way across the resort. Like, so there's two towers at this resort. We were in the second tower. You'd have had to go all the way through the third tower, all the way through the parking lot, and then out over to the other place. And I thought about it a couple times, but we were at the pool. And I just never.
I would have gone just to see if maybe I could have seen KJ Jefferson at the breakfast buffet in the morning.
Oh, well, there were a couple days we had to be at the volleyball gym at 6:30, 6:45.
Sounds literally awful.
Yeah. In a convention center that had 200, I think it's 230 courts, 230 volleyball courts.
What is the sound of that? Like, do you have to just wear earplugs?
You get that's the thing is like if there's 5 courts, there's 100 courts because it's all just whistles and shoes squeaking and like people clapping. Like it's just white noise. It becomes white noise. I don't know how the girls do it. Like with all the whistles, like wouldn't like so you just learn to like the whistle doesn't even matter. You just
keep playing
until somebody yells at you.
Literally runs out onto the court and takes the ball.
Right. Because it's chaos. I mean, there literally was between the 3 convention centers that we were in, it was the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando. There's 3 huge convention halls, and they put courts on every inch. So like 250 plus. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, seemed like it. But anyway.
Yeah. We played like crap though. So
what else do you want? Did you guys make a coaching change yet or a front office?
No, the lady that our coach owns the club. So
no, she's not gonna fire herself.
It wasn't coaching, man.
I'm sure it was.
There's a lot of really good teams down there that
joking.
I know. I'm just saying. Like there were a couple teams that I felt like we probably had a chance to win, but we didn't play well. And then there were a couple times that like I said, we played one team that had 3. There was a team from Florida. They had 3 13-year-old girls that were 5'9" plus that had like traps and lats and like muscle. like what the hell is happening here? I have a theory in volleyball, Dave. If they most of the teams have like sleeves, right? Yeah. Like
if they're wearing cutoffs, they're good.
You're in trouble because You can't go to that look if you stink. Like that, you cannot rock that look if you're not awesome.
Yeah.
And we walked onto the court and I saw 3 or 4 of those girls on that team in the cutoff sleeves. I was like, oh, this one's not going to go great. They were really good.
Yeah. That's like when we were in high school and we'd go to we would always go to team camp at Louisville and play. Yeah. But you just play other high schools. You just walk on the floor. You're like, well, I'm just going to have fun because we sure as shit ain't winning this game.
But yeah, it was a great trip. Like they didn't play. They had a stretch where they didn't play great, but the talent level just jumps considerably when you're. We didn't play. We didn't play any of the Puerto Rican teams this year. Those girls are good, and there's always one 60-year-old dude that's the coach, and he just stands there like this, and he doesn't really say anything. But if they screw up, they look at him and he looks at them and they know, I'm not ever doing that again. He just doesn't say a word. He just gives it one of these.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's enough volleyball stuff. Yeah, I should have taken a picture in front of the Hojo. But next year, I'll put it on the priority list.
There you go.
To be enjoying my unofficial visit at UCF with my picture. Meeting with the co-op staff here in the conference room at the Howard Johnson.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't even know there were still Howard Johnsons. That's why I used it as part of my joke, because I didn't even think they still existed anymore.
Well, I think we talked about it a while ago when we were talking about Big 12 Media Days in Vegas, that when my brother and I were looking up the cheapest hotel room in
Howard Johnson
Reno was an $8 a night Howard Johnson.
And you didn't stay there?
We didn't. We splurged for the for a little bit nicer accommodations.
It's Reno. How nice does it need to be?
Well, it needs to be at least, somewhat nice.
Oh. Any other football stuff? What else? We had a decommitment tonight.
We did, unfortunately.
Eric Gale from Withrow heading to Illinois instead of Cincinnati. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Real quick. Timestamp. Thanks, Aaron. Brought to you by Turtles Brew. 6% ABV, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, bourbon-infused sweet tea. They have lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. There's over 100 locations throughout the state of Ohio. A portion of proceeds go to save the sea turtles. If you'd like to know where you can get Turtles Brew nearest you, go to turtlesbrew.com for more information and where to pick them up. Good job, Aaron. Appreciate you. Eric Gale.
Yes.
Off to Illinois. You hate to lose a local kid,
sure.
Which, I think goes without saying. But Gale was projected to be kind of a longer term body, a guy that was going to take a little time to grow into that linebacker frame and really get on the field. So it's frustrating because you want to keep all the local kids, but I don't know that this is a guy that was going to make a great impact in year 1 or year 2. And in college football anymore, I can't lose a lot of sleep over that.
Yeah, it's tread lightly with comments. We always try to, but try to be honest as well. I mean, I liked, anyone that's listened to us or read anything on the board knows I saw him play last year, liked what I saw, has all the traits and athleticism that you like to see. Did think that he was fair, he still is pretty fairly new to football, and that's not a precursor to say that you're, some guys that are new to football acclimate incredibly quickly. Other guys, it takes more time. I just, from watching him and kind of just from where I sit, which is nowhere near where, guys like Zach or the coaching staff sits when they're evaluating, I thought it was going to be a developmental player, which is fine because that's a lot of what UC is. So, I didn't really have any expectation that he would come in next year and be a guy that truly helps. And I don't say it to say that I don't care at all about even high school recruiting and recruiting in general, but the reality is they got to win football games this year.
Right.
And so what happens in the 2025 or 2026 class, yes, it absolutely 100% matters. But they got to win games this year, or it might not matter. is one way of putting it. So, no one. I'm never gonna couch a decommitment and just be like, oh, don't care at all, no big deal whatsoever. Good riddance, whatever. Wasn't I'm never gonna talk bad about kids and say I didn't think he was good enough or anything like that, because we just don't know. I mean, I saw him play one game against my alma mater in high school, which isn't exactly turning out a bunch of major Division I football. I mean, they're good. They're a very good football team, but they're not. It's not like they're loaded with 6'4", 280-pound offensive linemen that he was going against.
You went there. It can't be that impressive physically.
Well, it's gone a long way since we were there. I was there 25 years ago. It's been that long, which seems crazy.
Relax, Dave. I'm coming. Next year is 35 for me.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, they'll he was pretty much their only edge type commitment. So I would imagine there will be some additional looking of that edge outside linebacker type role. I think there's still several key targets out there that they could potentially, would like to land, could potentially land. But we also know in talking to Zach that they do, I don't want to say save spots because someone has to be worthy of that spot, but they certainly keep an open mind to seniors and guys that
sure
have a really good senior year. And sometimes it works the opposite. I mean, we've seen it with this staff. Kids have not progressed and they've decided to move on. So it works both ways. And so, not saying, I think they're still doing, a pretty darn good job with the high school kids. And you mentioned it with basketball, and I think it's similar in football, but you just need way more high school kids to truly have a solid overall program. You can't do the portal thing like you do in basketball. I think that some teams, maybe not out of necessity, but like Tim mentioned with Kansas State, 2 years ago, they go to the Final Four with a whole bunch of transfers, and last year it didn't work. So it's different, I think, in basketball. You still need to have those foundational classes made out of high school kids. I just think it comes a little bit different now. NIL is a factor. There's different things pulling, and it's on the staff to kind of regroup and see where they want to go from here on that, and see what they can do.
And again, I go back to I wasn't taking a swipe at the kid. I was making a commentary on high school recruiting at this point in time. I just, unless it's a kid that you feel is going to come in and be able to at least push for a spot, push for time early, make a large special teams contribution early. It's just hard for me to one way or the other. If they flip a kid that's, kind of in the same mold,
right?
Okay, we'll probably see him in 2 years. If everything goes exactly as planned, we'll probably see him in 2 years. So it's not a dig at the kid as much as the way the system is set up now. It's hard to really in the old days, you'd be like, damn, that hurts. They really needed somebody at that spot, or they really Like the roster is deficient there. I think this is what I'm getting at more than anything. And now, if the roster is deficient, you go get a veteran. Like you're not going and getting a freshman anymore, like the way you used to have to like play that game. Now it's, you know, if I need somebody to make an impact, I go get Micah Coleman out of the portal. Right?
Yeah.
Like a guy that's developed and especially like when you're talking one of those edge spots, Dave, a guy that's got his grown man muscles now instead of I was just in high school. Like I just went to prom and now I'm at Camp Higher Ground. That's kind of where I was coming from for that. So I don't want people to take it as like sour grapes. Like anytime you lose a local kid, it stings. Because there's a reason that they focus on those kids. That's it, you know, you think once they get here, it's going to mean a little more with the name on the front of the jersey. But, you know, I could throw some shade on this one. I've said what I needed to say on the board.
It doesn't do us any good.
Right. I just, you know, sometimes the happenings around the prep scene in this city leave me scratching my head, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And I also think too, I think we are we're seeing that there's a bit, we saw it especially in that first year, but like the program was in such a good place from a talent evaluation and development standpoint when Fick was here that playing in the AAC allowed those younger guys to get on the field quicker. That I just don't think you see as much with the high end guys are always going to figure out a way, but like the guys that were kind of where Eric Gale is, you know, 80, 85, 86, 87, good athlete, needs some development. Those guys got on the field a lot quicker in the AAC than I think we're going to see them get on the field in the Big 12. And so if you know, if like you said, if they're not there yet in year 2, like they're going to find a junior, senior, or even a sophomore, whatever, whoever it might be, who's been on the field already. They're not like teams aren't going to wait to see if you develop. They're guys are out there that they know are already developed. They need that talent. They need that infusion of contribution. So the waiting to see on the very solid mid-tier guys, just I don't know if it's going to be there like it once was.
Yeah, I mean it's legit. Like I said, man, it's hard to get all that caught up as much as we used to in high school recruiting. It is still the lifeblood of the program. But it also comes with a caveat now of, you know, are they going to be here when it's by the time their body and brain is ready to contribute? Are they going to be here? Or are they going to be somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the reality of college football in 2024. So, what else you got? Anything on football?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Do I have anything else on football? Oh, we got a commitment. We should talk about Jordan Woods.
Sure.
We shouldn't just talk about the decommit.
Aaron and I did a nightcap, so I thought like in my brain I already checked that box off, but you have not spoken on it, so go ahead.
Another big defensive back. I mean, he's pushing like 6'4". For the olds out there, 6'7" with the hair for a Fletch reference. But yeah, I kind of see him as that. I won't say as that third safety, but I see him as a safety, not really an outside guy. I know 247 lists him as a corner. Tyson Veit was one of the first offers he gave out when he got on staff, which tells me that he sees him in that type of a role.
Yeah.
He's played a lot of corner. He's got good turn and run ability. But these guys are certainly going after the 6 foot plus defensive, defensive backs, corners, just like the old staff did. I mean, you don't see a lot of the 5'9", 5'10" kids.
No, you've seen some like 5'11", 6 foot, which as long as they've got the wingspan, the length is not a serious detriment. But you're not looking at a bunch of like, hey, we brought in a 5'9" guy to play the nickel,
right?
Anymore. But mainly because they don't have a nickel. So, yeah. Matt says no Dalton Connect. They're 10 picks. How you doing, Dave? They're thinking of you.
I'm doing excellent, Matt, because my team picks in 2 picks, and if he goes to Oklahoma City at 12, I will be thrilled.
You're almost there. We're at 11. The pick is in.
Very, very happy that he hasn't gone in the top. Very happy he hasn't gone in the top 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'd be great.
Some NCAA football stuff came out today. We did not get confirmation on the UC side, but a lot of talk about all the extras that were put in terms of like the in-game feel. I would be shocked if we don't see down the drive. I would be, I think we should see some version of the band running down the stadium steps. But
you're talking about a video game?
Yes.
Oh, I have no.
You're gonna play it. You're gonna play it.
Where? How would I play it?
You're not gonna play NCAA football 2025.
How would I play it with using what?
You go buy a gate system.
Oh, you think I'm gonna do that?
Yes.
No, absolutely not.
Those are incredible bonding moments with your son as you beat the piss out of him.
No,
playing a game.
That is not.
No,
I have no interest. I told you guys the last video game I played was SSX Tricky in like 2002 in our fraternity house as we all skipped classes and got put on academic probation.
Dave, you're not going to teach your son how to slam his controller in a fit of rage because his dad is beating him 49-0 at halftime?
I have enough things going on with him with being obsessed with wrestling and trying to beat me up and injure me at every chance. Like, no, we don't need any. He needs like physical activity. Not the worst thing for this kid would be sitting in front of a TV playing video games all day.
You could get him the WWE game as well, and he could legitimately like beat people up in the wrestling game.
No, his birthday party is WWE themed. His invitation is him, The Undertaker, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and Jey Uso on the invitation.
That's great.
So yeah, no, I will not be buying any systems. I will not be playing any video games. So that is very much a you and Aaron and I don't know, maybe Keegan conversation. I am as out on that as anyone can be.
Unbelievable. I thought I knew you.
They're not my thing. What can I say?
The new NCAA governance is coming down. They are looking to cut the transfer portal window from 45 days to 30 days, essentially in half from what we saw like when this thing started a couple years ago. Aaron and I touched on it yesterday, but ultimately, like, if you don't know by 30 days, like, what are we doing? If a kid's going into the portal, he knows at day 30. He might drag it out until day 45 strategically, because if you go in late, it seems like there's a lot more money for you than there is if you're going in with the large horde of people at the beginning. But 30 days, whatever, 45 days, it doesn't matter, really.
No, I saw they're changing some of the open contact, whatever periods too.
Yeah. Look, everybody's cheating. Like, they can do whatever they want about that. Everybody's cheating.
Yeah.
Everybody is making contact early. Everybody is reaching out to high school coaches and AAU coaches and basketball and trainers. Trainers are the new big one. Like who's the trainer? You got to work through the trainer. I don't think it really changes anything. I think it's probably a good thing. If we had to pick good or bad, if you had to pick a side, probably a good thing that they're shortening that window to go in, because once you're in, you're in. Like you don't have to decide right away. You can delay your decision and wait until later in the process if that's your strategic move. But the guys that know they're going to go in the portal, go in the portal one way or the other.
I think it was a smart with kind of what they did with the recruiting windows and stuff for while you're still in season.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff was ridiculous, and it was going to become even more ridiculous. And I guess we'll still see how it all unfolds. Like you're hosting visits, or you have a portal window open while teams are getting ready for the playoff. Like I know the teams getting ready for the playoff don't need any more advanced, but they should still at least be on level playing field. And how could you possibly expect them to be getting ready for a playoff game and then also hosting transfer portal guys in high school? Like that's ridiculous to ask them to do that.
Right. That part gets even more interesting though, as now the playoff goes even farther.
Right.
With 12 teams. So.
And then whenever they expand it to 16.
I think it'll stay at 14, actually.
Yeah.
I think 1 and 2 are going to want to buy. And probably rightfully so.
Yeah. Well,
but there also is money in that game, having 1 and 2 play 15 and 16. So,
well, sure.
Money usually wins.
More games on TV.
Money usually wins.
That's right. I'll give you that. That's right.
I'll give you that. And then, no more Travis Kelce in 2010. Not a happy camper right now because it looks like there will be no more. Marijuana will not be a punishable substance, I guess is a good way to put it.
I could think of some other Bearcats that would have helped out. I won't implicate any of them, but
I could give you a few as well. But Travis actually got punished.
Right.
Like Travis failed a test and got suspended for a year.
He got caught. Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys that have just taken years off of their career because they like the lettuce too much.
Yeah, that's right. So,
that's all I've really got on the football side.
I think so. What's going on with hoops? They've had some visitors in I assume these are unofficials. Is that accurate?
Unofficials right now. The two guys this week are both 2026 guys. One of them, Alex Smith, an Ohio kid, 6'8"-ish, forward, a guy that it sounds like is turning some heads, I guess is a good way to put it, over the spring AAU period and into the high school period. So Cincinnati doing their work to get involved there. And then yesterday, Alex Thompson, who is a top 15, I think he was 11. Anthony Thompson, sorry, I don't know why I said Alex. I knew I was wrong when I said it, and I was like, that's not right. Anthony Thompson, who's he's number 11 in 2026 for 247. And from some people I talked to, they think that might be even low for him as he continues. He's still young. I think he either is just turning 16. I think he's just turning 16 or he's not quite 16 yet. So he's a guy that huge upside, has really played well in the early portion of the offseason window. And I know a lot of people are very, very high on him. You would hope, Dave, he plays AAU for Indy Elite, and his Indy Elite coach is Mark Adams, who is Drew Adams' dad. And he just transferred to Western Reserve Academy up in Northern Ohio, who is run by one of Wes Miller's best friends. So does that automatically mean they're going to get him? No, of course not. He's trending to be a top 10, if not higher recruit. But you would hope that puts you in a position to
sure
to have a long-standing seat at the table on a guy that is blowing up.
Yeah, I think someone from 24/7 recently put out yesterday maybe about, was it Keyshawn Tillery?
Yeah,
in the 2025 class, he seems like a kid that's had a huge change in their updated rankings, like almost 100 spots.
Yeah. He's a guy that I think, they like a lot from what they've seen so far in the spring. That evaluation will continue. I think there's a NEPSAC event this weekend, which is the New England. It's the private schools up in New England.
Yeah.
That he went to New Hampton, which is where Wes went. So you would hope Wes would have a pretty good connection there. They're going to have an interesting decision at point guard on what direction they want to go.
Yeah.
Jalen Reese, they've been on for a long time. Tillery is a name that has definitely popped up here lately. So, it's going to be really interesting to see how they hone in that focus at point guard. And then Xavier Robinson is another one that is working on setting up a visit. He plays for Mike Saunders' AAU program. And then yesterday, an offer goes out to London Jemison, 6'7", 185 pounds. He plays at St. Thomas More, which is where Tyler Betsy came from, and also where Kane Broom is an assistant coach. So another one to keep an eye on as we continue through this cycle. It's crazy, Dave. The last 2 years are so much different than the other 15 years of my career doing this, because generally by the time we get to June 26th, a lot is known.
Right.
About what, is the guy going to take a visit here in this next week or so before 4th of July? If not, you're probably not going to get that kid until the fall. Who are these are the guys that are likely going to be here on official visits in the fall, because of the transfer portal and because of this is the first year they took away April and they gave coaches a week in May, because coaches basically said, we can't be on the road recruiting in April, high school kids, because it's the portal window. Right. And we need all hands on deck on campus, because you would see, you would go out to these events in April and they used to be just jam-packed with coaches throughout the gym, everywhere, every coach in the sport. And you go last year and there's 40, maybe 50% of the number of coaches you used to see they're back on campus. They're hosting visits. They're working on, their NIL and doing things that the high school recruiting in April just slid way down the priority list. So what you're seeing now is teams are still in sorting mode, kind of. You see, we'll take a guy like Davion Hannah. They know Davion Hannah's a great player. They know he's, right on that cusp of a 5-star prospect. They built that relationship over years. Again, Drew Adams recruited his brother to Bradley. So he knows the family. Davion Hannah's going to visit in the fall. That's somebody is a priority guy. Yeah. But in terms of a lot of the rest of this, I don't think a lot of it's going to be decided until we get to the end of July. And they decide, okay, these are the 3 or 4 guys, whatever it is, that we want to official visit, and then we're going to put our full attention on. And in years past, man, that used to happen a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a couple coaches around the country about that this week. And like, look, man, like look at the movement you saw in the rankings, where a bunch of these kids are jumping 50, 70, 100 spots. Like, even the ranking people are so caught up with some of this other stuff that they're not getting to these things until later than anticipated. And you're seeing more movement than usual. And you're seeing a lot more like volatility in these rankings because a guy gets rated as a junior, a rising junior, sophomore into his junior year, and maybe you don't get a good look at him again until May or June the following year. And then all of a sudden, either A, he's really taken a step up in his game, or B, he was a guy that maybe the pack caught up to him and his development is flatlined. And then you see a drop. So it's just another one of those, like, we talk about it all the time. In this business right now, over the past 2-3 years, you've had to adjust your brain on how stuff works because you've gotten a rhythm of how it worked for so long. And there's so much that's different that, you got to wait to see what the new trend is. We talked about that with official visits. Like, there was a trend right as these June official visits opened up, the kids were committing after the first visit.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that, we just saw a couple commitments for Cincinnati coming from that first official visit weekend, where they made that first impression and they held on to the end. Jordan Woods being a perfect example. So it's interesting with 2025, but I still don't think we know a whole lot. I think we're getting some names and we're getting a feel because of the connections of who might be prioritized, but I don't think we have a full-scale answer to any of that yet.
How many do you think from high school would be the ideal number?
And that's so hard to say right now because
just hard to say because
the main reason it's hard to say is because there's a lot of guys that are going to have decisions to make at the end of this. Dylan Mitchell, Aziz Bandago, it sounds like he's going to get an extra year. Dan Skillings, like Dizzle James, what is he going to be a guy that wants to give the NBA a try? Or like, so right now it's really volatile, which is hard because guess what? If you're going to get good high school players, you'd like to have them locked in November. Yeah, but in November, you have no clue what April is going to look like. So that part is going to be a challenge. I mean, I would guess 3. If I had to guess, 3 high school kids. And then you figure out the rest from there. But I mean, if it was, would I be shocked if it was 1 or 2? No, not really. Would I be shocked if it was 5? Yes. Yeah. Would I be surprised if it was 4? Yeah, because bringing in a class of 4 high school kids, man, you better hope 1 or 2 of them are really ready. Really ready. Especially in a year where you think there's a pretty good chance you lose a good chunk of the top of your roster.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. You don't really see the development anymore. So if you're going to bring in 4 or something, or
you better be ready for 2 of them to really never play for you.
Right. To be here a year or 2 and then leave because they aren't playing. So
because let's say hypothetically, you have to replace Dan Skillings, Dylan Mitchell, Seamus Lukosius, Connor Hickman, CJ Frederick,
Aziz.
Day Thomas, Aziz potentially.
Right.
Like 7, 8, like if you have a transfer added in, 7, 8, 9 guys you're gonna have to replace.
Yeah.
Boy, you better hope you better plan on most of them being portal additions because you're gonna be replacing all of your production. A large portion of your production.
Mm-hmm.
a season from now, even if everything goes exactly as planned, like a bunch of these guys are going to be out of eligibility, or going into year 7 in college.
Yeah.
The good news now is you can make that happen a little easier, because guess what? This guy's got a chance to make a pretty good. It would take a lot of McDonald's bags to get them all the money.
Right. Excuse me.
This is an interesting one, Dave. Did you see this?
No.
Not that Indiana matters, but have either of you seen the beef between Mike Woodson and the Hoosier Hysterics guys? Have to imagine that kind of bad PR can only help our own recruiting leverage for Indiana guys. So,
no, I didn't.
Hoosier Hysterics.
Completely blind to this.
Do you know what Hoosier Hysterics is?
No.
It's basically us, like a version of us on absolute steroids. Like, they run $1 million collective for IU.
Wait, like, so they have a website like we do, or they are a collective like Cincy Reigns?
No, they started as a podcast.
Okay.
It's just two guys that are diehard Indiana fans. They started a podcast. And then when NIL became a thing, they started crowdsourcing and turned that into a collective.
Okay.
From talking to Keegan about this, I don't know the whole story, and I only listened to a little bit of the portion that it came out on their podcast this week. Hoosier Hysterics, Mike Woodson's kids work for them. Like, they have employed his family. Okay. And they had a golf outing scheduled to raise money for the collective, to put money in the pockets.
Makes sense. Good way to do that.
Woodson canceled it. Just shut it down.
He canceled, like he said, this is not going to happen.
Basically, like, we're not cooperating. Like, the big thing about a golf outing, right, is you get the coach, you get some players, like, everybody's around. And
I assume his family members are out of a job then?
I've got to go back and listen. I haven't had time because I've had radio and other things, but Keegan texted me yesterday morning. He was like, "You have to listen to this." That basically, like, they have, Woodson has created a giant rift between these people that were funding. Like, I'm going to be honest about this on what I know from Indiana right now. And there's nothing wrong with this because it is completely legal. But their philosophy right now is we are going to buy the best roster we can afford. They don't spend a lot of time recruiting. They don't spend a lot of time basketball. Yeah. Yes. They don't spend a lot of time building relationships. They spend a lot of time figuring out who's looking for a bag that's really talented, and let's see if we can make a match. I don't know that I would bite the hand that feeds me on that. If this is an entity that has gone out of their way, like they are one that they make it very clear they are IU fans. Yeah. Like, they are diehards. They do have some affiliation with Peegs. I know Rab John is a regular guest on their podcast. It just doesn't make any sense that, like, you take these people that have gone out of their way to support you and then make their life more difficult while they're trying to raise money to support you. I don't understand Mike Woodson. I really don't.
Yeah. doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me.
You see John Cunningham just tells Brian Fox and Ken Tracy, like, now we're out. We're not helping you out with that anymore. What? And these guys, like I said, that it wasn't like, it was crowdsourcing. Here you go. This is a little more info. Woodson in the meeting, which was discussed in the podcast, included the Indiana AD, said, "I'll say this while the AD is here. I'm staying here as long as I want to stay here," while pointing to the AD's face.
Okay.
Aggressive.
Yeah, that's a bold line to draw in the sand.
Well, and So you take a meeting with two podcast guys, yourself and the AD, you make an ass of yourself. You don't expect the podcast guys to go talk about it on their podcast?
Yeah, that's great content. That's clicks, baby.
Right.
Like, I didn't sign no NDA in this meeting.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. I've had a bad vibe from that dude from the start, and it is playing itself out. I know they bought a bunch of really good players for this season. I hope they fall flat on their face. It's a great comical listen if you're not a Hoosier fan.
Who did they purchase?
I mean, a lot of guys, Dave.
I need it real quick. I have the draft on my phone while we're doing this, and a guy named Bub Carrington from Pittsburgh, who I literally have never heard of, got drafted, and Dalton Connect hasn't gotten drafted yet. Can someone explain that to me?
That's a lot. I don't know who this guy is. Bub Carrington.
From Pitt, because Pitt was awesome this year, and now they've got a lottery. Not saying that you can't be, I mean, we see it all the time. Lottery picks don't necessarily have to come from great teams, but I'm not really understanding that one, although I'd like to see Dalton go to Miami, team up with one of my other favorite college basketball players over the last 5 years, in Jaime Jaquez. That would be a lot of fun.
Indiana got number 1 transfer overall, Omar Balou. From Arizona. Kanan Carlisle from Stanford. Miles Rice from Washington State.
Okay.
I mean,
they'll still be a fringe NCAA tournament team?
I mean, they think they're going to win the whole damn thing.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
They got the number 1 transfer portal class.
They get a new coach too?
Not yet. But if your head coach is finger pointing your AD, yeah. They got Luke Good too from I think he was at Purdue.
Oh, doesn't ring a bell.
I mean, he wasn't very good. So, Indiana kid, big white kid. Watched a bunch of them.
Got it. But yeah, that's a I guess that's a thing you can do.
Could you imagine if we were sitting in a meeting with Wes and John Cunningham, and Wes just is like pointing a finger at John Cunningham and telling him something like, "What are we doing?"
Or we have set up all this stuff to funnel a bunch of money to his program, and then we have a golf tournament set up to funnel even more money, because that's obviously the point of it.
Right.
And he's just like, nope, we're not. Shut it. Cancel the whole. What was the reason behind the cancellation of it?
I haven't listened to all of it.
That's the part I would love to hear. You just don't want free money, essentially. You don't want to have to show up for one day.
I think it's showing the collective that I'm the boss.
To shake some hands.
I call the shots. You don't call the shots. I call the shots. Okay, buddy. Okay. Anywho. Schedule comes out tomorrow.
It does.
It does. Well, at least we know who they play and where.
Opponents.
Tomorrow. Opponents come out tomorrow. Are you like me? I would rather play as many of the top teams one game at their place.
I think we talked about this.
Yes, we're back
a while ago.
Yeah, we're back into this world.
Yes, because what we said was, yes, it's going to be harder to win, but 1 or 2 of those wins has immense value compared to whatever your home game wins are.
Yeah, I'm still sure. Let's say hypothetically they get Kansas and Arizona at Fifth Third Arena, and they win one of those 2 games.
Yeah.
There's no return game. It's just one of the Fifth Third Arena games, and you beat one of them. But the reality is that's going to be really difficult because those teams are going to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So do you take the chance of you'd rather play them on the road and then get Colorado at Fifth Third Arena, where a game that you're going to win?
Well, we hope after last year.
What you think you're going to win? Well, what you want probably is the lesser teams. You want to play them twice.
Yeah.
Like you want to get UCF and West Virginia and I don't know, Arizona State.
I don't know. Do you want to play them twice, or you just want to play them once and play the better teams twice?
I think you want one or two.
Because if you think you're going to be good, then I don't really want to play the bottom teams twice.
I still want to play one or two of them twice. I don't want all of them twice.
No,
you want one or two. You don't want to go home and home with Houston, Baylor, Kansas, Arizona, and Iowa State. You don't want to do that. That could be 10 losses.
Mark it down. That's exactly what will happen tomorrow.
They get the top 10 teams. They get all 5 of them home and home.
Yeah.
Hey, that's 10 opportunities for Q1 A1 wins.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's all about opportunities now. You're in with the big dogs. You've built a team to make the tournament. Give me all the opportunities to put together a legitimate top 4 seed line type resume. And if
I agree with that. I don't disagree with that.
If you fall flat on your face, then you fall flat on your face. But if you're going to be in this league, let's play the big dogs and see what happens.
But that's not how it works. You get 5 home, 5 away, 5 both. So
right.
I'd like for there to be a little balance of
sure.
You get 1 or 2 of those top teams at home only, but you also get 1 or 2 of the bad teams home and away. And then you get it. I would like 1 or 2 winnable road games in those 5 road only, because road games are valuable. And generally in this league, most of the road games, you're going to have 10 road games. What would you guess? 7 of them are quad 1?
Yeah,
8 of them are quad 1?
I want a bunch of the road games to be of that middle group that UC will be in.
Yeah.
I want, because those are the ones that still have value but are inherently winnable.
Yeah. It's a lot of tough places to play, though. Those teams are also going to be top 25 level teams. You do have to go win 1 or 2 at their place. Yes. Because guess what? You're not going undefeated at home in this league unless you are a legit Final Four contender.
That's why I say if you got to go win 1 or 2, give me more chances to do that, even if it's against the better teams, because I want the reward for getting those road wins.
Yeah. If you can get 1 or 2 out of those 5 that are just on the road, no return game, get 2, I think you feel good no matter who it is, because they're almost all going to be quad 1 games, and a couple of them are going to be quad 1A. So, excited to see that tomorrow as it pops out.
I think 1:00 is the rumor I heard. 1:00 Eastern, maybe.
I'm sure Aaron and I will have a nightcap tomorrow night, taking a look at how that came out and what our thoughts are. You got anything else?
I don't think so. We need to get in touch with our boy Doug, because they put out a nice video about the golf performance center.
Yeah.
And we need to go shoot some. We need to get some good video of me or whoever out there, Keegan, playing, interviewing the guys, putting some numbers out on the TrackMan. Some good stuff that everybody can laugh at and how terrible we are.
You definitely don't want me doing that.
Compared to those guys.
You definitely don't want that from me. I'll film you guys. How's that?
That works. What
Kai said Woodson was pissed they were critical of the team on their podcast.
They weren't any good.
I mean,
So you're
just going to cut off your nose in spite of your face?
Then what do you want us to talk about if you don't play well? Like pretend that you are playing well or not talk about it?
Although they did have a player selected before Dalton Connect. So
they did. And they just showed Mike Woodson, by the way.
Was he pointing at anybody?
I don't think so.
All right.
But
that's going to wrap it up. I don't have anything else. I'm good for the night. Thanks to Tim Fitzgerald. GoPowerCat.com, our 24/7 Kansas State site. Thanks to Dave, as always. Thanks to Aaron. Great work on the back end, keeping me in line. We will see you next week. The BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com.